I'm Clay Coomer, and this is the Travel Insights Podcast. The date is April 21st, 2025, and in this episode of the Insights Podcast, we're going unscripted. So I have nothing in front of me. I have thrown the notes away, and I am going to talk specifically about the state of the travel insurance industry in general. I'm not really taking any sort of data necessarily from our policy information. This is more of a unscripted and raw take on what we're seeing in the travel insurance industry broadly. So stick with us. Coming up next on the Travel Insights Podcast. Welcome back to this new episode of the Travel Insights Podcast powered by Battleface. I am Clay Coomer, host and head of marketing at Battleface. And in this episode, we are going unscripted and we are talking about the state of the travel insurance industry broadly. And when I think about the travel insurance industry, the first honest thing that comes to mind for me is honestly a need for evolution, a need for travel insurance providers to evolve, frankly. Honestly, I would even frame it as some type of revolution, if you will. And that's not hyperbole either. When I look at various things from an abstract point of view and also too from an objective perspective on the types of experiences that travel insurance providers have, right? By and large, this industry is moving more towards embedded, right? And providing that point of purchase embedded into a partner's booking path or experience. You can see it virtually everywhere. Use the word ubiquitous as my college football coach first told me that word, and then now I use it all the time. It makes me feel really smart, but I like the word ubiquitous. But frankly, when you go on to book your hotel or you book your flight or on vacation rental sites, you are booking your experience, whether it's flights or hotel or again your vacation rental, and within that experience, you are offered the opportunity to opt in for travel protection. And this is also globally applicable. So this type of experience is found whether you are in the US or Canada or Australia or Germany, Spain, Mexico. You will find embedded offers within the booking path while you are in the process of booking travel. And I think, from the Battleface perspective as a company, but also my personal opinion is that these products that are being embedded in the path, I think there's a notion of relevancy to the specific trip that I believe is in some cases lacking. So, for example, if you're going through, the booking process for an airline and you get to that step where you are offered travel protection, a lot of times you'll see, 3 to 4 benefits that are there bundled in a package. And I want to say that in most, if not all cases, you will find the same types of benefits. Typically, what you'll see is trip cancellation or flight cancellation or interruption. You'll see baggage damage or delay. You'll also likely find some type of travel medical or emergency evacuation coverage in there. And that is the same offer, whether that person is traveling domestically or if you're traveling internationally, whether you've decided to check your bags or not check your bags. And again, I just think that there is such a need there, specifically and thinking about the flight booking process, that the lack of relevancy there and not ingesting customers' inputs to actually provide a more relevant product is something that really needs to be looked at more closely. Because I mean, from my own personal experience, as a person who works in travel insurance, has worked in travel insurance for almost a decade, I have not really seen like a whole lot of changes in this space. I mean, yes, at times you'll see different providers coming in and out. Whether they're offering a flight interruption or a flight cancellation, those types of things. But I mean, but for me, I rarely, if ever, check bags. So I mean, when I see that there's a benefit for luggage or baggage protection in there, and I'm thinking, well, I mean, why would I need that? Like, why? I mean, that's not something that like is enticing or appealing for me to opt into, to spend my money on something that is optional and also not relevant. So again, I think that just point number one in this whole unscripted state of travel insurance is again around this topic of product relevancy and the need to use the data that is at our disposal to be able to ingest that data and actually recommend a product that is more befitting to what the type of trip is being taken. And again, it's something that may seem self-explanatory or just obvious, but it's not something that I personally have really observed. But it is something that we're having a lot of conversations with other partners. Other partners coming to us and seeing that we have the tech capabilities and the flexibility in APIs to actually do this type of thing. But again, the thing that's really, I'd say, standing in our way is the fact that a lot of these travel providers, travel suppliers, they're locked into different contractual agreements and obligations that prohibit them from being able to test the waters with A/B testing or multivariate type testing to do that. So I think it's definitely a challenge point for the broader industry to really examine, to really focus in on attachment rates from a historical perspective. Yes, travel insurance as an industry globally is a multi-billion-dollar massive industry, and it's projected to just increase over the next several years. But consumers are getting smarter, right? Consumers are definitely, I think, noticing that the type of package that they're being offered, particularly with embedded, doesn't really apply to them in a way that's personalized or in a lot of cases relevant. So that's point number one, right? Key takeaway is product relevancy when we're thinking about in-path offers for embedded type of booking experiences, and the need to diversify and test to see if there's a way to increase opt-ins for attachment, because this isn't auto insurance, this isn't homeowners insurance, this isn't healthcare or major healthcare or medical insurance where it's legally required for people to have. This is something that is optional, that travelers are spending their money on to opt in to. So we really need to think about the messaging behind it and the benefits behind it to make it so it is more relevant to really hone in on that attachment. So that is point number one. And I'm going to take a quick break, and we will come back and continue with our unscripted podcast here. And next, I'm going to dive into holistic customer experience and everything that really embodies that, from purchase all the way to claims, etc. So stick with us. We'll be right back. The Travel Insights podcast is powered by Battleface. Battleface started in the UK market in 2018, offering travel protection to journalists covering news stories in conflict zone areas. What began as one product in one country has expanded to a global, multi-regional company on a mission to power the travel insurance industry. Battleface, built for today's travelers and building for tomorrow's. Welcome back. Clay Coomer here, host of the Travel Insights podcast. Thanks for sticking with us. And now, again, moving on to segment 2 of our unscripted podcast here. I am speaking from the heart, speaking from the brain, combined here, and really just kind of giving it a bit of unsolicited feedback and most candid way I can with regard to the state of the travel insurance industry as I see it, going on a decade in this industry here. And to touch on the first segment, I do believe pretty passionately on this whole notion of product relevancy, with being I'd say, conversion detractor across the landscape. Again, and this isn't just coming from just my own. I mean, yes, partly is my personal opinion, but also it's from real conversations that we're having with some existing partners and prospective partners for that matter, that have decided to engage us in conversations on this topic. And it's not like small brands either, right? I mean, we're talking about major publicly traded companies that are engaging us in these conversations on declining attachment, and that is again not just my personal opinion; it's just facts, right? And what the conversations are that we're having. But to pivot a little bit, I do think that the holistic customer experience, when you think about it in the realm of, I guess, just like the insurance industry at large, there's obviously been a lot of news stories that have circulated in recent months that have painted a pretty dark picture of the insurance industry. If you think about what happened with United Healthcare and its CEO, and what that sparked after the fact, that it all happened. And a lot of people, particularly on social channels like Instagram and TikTok, it was a fury of responses and just outrage that was, I mean, really interesting for me to ingest, as I am a person who works in the insurance industry. And again, when I think about Battleface in particular, and we have a pretty unwavering commitment to customer service and customer experience, and how it fits into our brand in totality, right? There's a reason why Battleface in particular has a excellent rating on Trustpilot with a score of 4.6 out of 5. We take matters of the customer nature, very, very seriously. I'm in tune with our customer support teams channels, and the responsiveness has always been off the charts. So when I zoom out like a little bit and just think about how the travel insurance industry has progressed with regard to holistic customer experience, I do think that it has probably progressed quicker and better compared to the product side of the house. I do think that a lot of providers have stepped up their game as far as really keying in on service level averages or SLAs, as far as being not just answering the phone, for example, in a timely manner, but also having, I think, a little bit more empathy for the customers when they are on the phone, and being more responsive to chats and emails, and making sure that the goal in mind is a one call, one email, one chat resolution type of experience. And but there are, I would say, a lot of complexities that are kind of going on at the same time. When you take a customer who is trying to submit a claim for trip cancellation versus a customer who is trying to get reimbursed for medical expenses while abroad. You're talking about two very different types of claims, right? And I think that that really probably doesn't get enough attention. But from the customer's perspective, they don't really care, frankly, right? They want their matter to be handled with priority and expediency. And I think it is the responsibility of the travel insurance provider to give them that type of experience, that when a customer service type of person is engaging in that dialogue, whether it's travel medical related trip cancellation or interruption or delay or whatever the case may be, the notion of treating their claim like it's the only claim that they're working on, I think is important. And truthfully, it'll be the difference in whether or not that customer is going to buy that insurance again, right? The intersection of that customer experience and how they feel and relation to lifetime value and likelihood of repeat buying is, I mean, it's so clear, right? You can obviously run different campaigns at nauseum to try to get new customer acquisition, but the big indicator, the big metric that that at least that is trackable is lifetime value and repeat purchases. And again, you win at that by the type of experience that you provide to the traveler. And the other side of this too, that is interesting in the world of travel insurance, is when you look at the expansiveness of the benefits that are offered, it's more than just insurance, right? There's the non-insurance assistance service, travel assistance services that come with a policy. And when you think about a different traveler type scenarios, and there are just a myriad of stories and use cases around this, when a customer actually does need a specific kind of assistance while they are traveling. And and thinking about it, zooming in a little bit more, and you think about medical evacuations as an example. I don't think that medical evacuations get enough attention in the broader context of travel insurance policies, because the amount of attention that needs to be paid to an evacuation type of case is it's intense, right? I mean, you have somebody who is in a location that needs medical attention, and you have to quickly be able to get that person lined up with the type of services and evacuation that they need, whether it's to a nearby medical facility or hospital, or if it's going back home. And there's a lot of layers there when it comes to the logistical nature of making that type of thing happen. And the other thing that, again, I don't think it gets enough attention when in this whole topic is thinking about those logistics. if you have an assistance services provider, whether it's insourced or it's outsourced, if they don't have claims authority type of approval to, basically approve a $50,000 medical evacuation, then they have to go, back to the actual, carrier, or they have to go back to the provider and then get that approval. If that doesn't happen in a timely manner, and you're looking at, the difference in somebody who could be in serious condition that needs to be taken somewhere. And the longer you wait, the more you prolong it because you need to get approval for it, that can be, very bad in general. So it just kind of, speaks to the travel insurance holistic experience. And, once that purchase has been made, and they have purchased the insurance, you have that window of time, usually depends on the region and the product and type of traveler, but you have that period of time from policy purchase to when the trip actually starts, right? Then once that trip starts, they're in their effective coverage period, and unpredictable, unforeseen things, can happen all the time. I mean, you look at the volatility of just like the around the globe right now. Things can definitely happen in a moment's notice. So that whole, I guess, like integration between that post-purchase experience with, customer service, and then, there being a travel assistance component there during that effective coverage window, and then marrying that with the claims side of it and claims administration. You think about all of the different people that are involved in that, and it can be, really, really complex. And that just, again, necessitates the need not just for the adequate technology and the tech stack to be able to do that, but also the personnel, right? I mean, it takes a, special type of person to work in that space, to be able to service customers the way that they need to be serviced. And again, it's a broad spectrum of things, and of course, there's always the opportunities for travel insurance, providers to make it be more efficient, make that claims turnaround time be as quick as possible. And again, all of these things, all of these different touch points along the way, whether minor or major, will play a critical role in the optics of travel insurance, the relationship that you have with your partner within a specific distribution channel, and that connection and that relationship with the customer and their likelihood to buy from you again, and the type of megaphone that they have at their disposal to be able to recommend you to other people, or conversely say negative things about you to other people, and or on the internet, right? We live in a world where it is at our fingertips, and if we have a poor experience, people are going to be, I'd say, more motivated to talk about the negative experience, to shine a light on it, rather than, boast about a positive experience. Of course, the positive experiences happen, right? You see stories, all the time, but the other side of that coin is, a story that could get, picked up by the media, for example. We've seen that happen as well, right? So it just really reinforces that need to look at that holistic post-purchase customer experience in its entirety, recognizing that it is complex, and it does require not just a seamless tech type of experience to be able to enable all those touch points, but it also necessitates the need for the right team structure to be able to facilitate all of these things, again, all for the customer experience and that likelihood of purchasing again to increase lifetime value. So, whew, all right. Well, that was a lot. That segment went longer than I anticipated, but I do believe it's one that really should be heard, right? And it really needs to be considered in broader business plans from a strategic perspective for this industry, so that the insurance world, at least this little corner that we have in travel insurance, isn't viewed as in a paradoxical nature as some of these other different types of insurance that are offered. So that'll conclude segment 2 here of our unscripted podcast. I'm going to touch on one more unscripted segment, and I'm going to pull bits and pieces from the previous episode of the Insights podcast, and talking a little bit about the decline in consumer confidence and some of those economic indicators that have recently been published. So we talked about that in the last podcast, but going to go a little unscripted there and really talk about what it could mean for the travel industry, and touch on some of the anticipated demands and fluctuation that we might see here this year, and again, just some tactics on what travel businesses can do about it. I'm just going to reinforce some bits from the previous episode. So stick with us. We will be right back. The Travel Insights podcast is powered by Battleface. Battleface started in the UK market in 2018, offering travel protection to journalists covering news stories in conflict zone areas. What began as one product in one country has expanded to a global, multi-regional company on a mission to power the travel insurance industry. Battleface, built for today's travelers and building for tomorrow's. And welcome back to this episode of the Travel Insights podcast. I'm your host and head of marketing, Clay Coomer, and this is the unscripted podcast on the state of the travel insurance industry. So far, rambled on about topics around product relevancy, and then talked a little bit about the holistic customer experience and some pretty granular detail there. So in this last portion here, I did want to touch on the recent podcast that we published last week around a bit, I guess, more of an ominous tone around the economic outlook as it currently stands with regard to consumer confidence. And this was reported by AP News towards the end of March. And we dedicated an episode on this particular topic to really, take a action-oriented, proactive approach to recognizing that there are indicators right now that are blinking that suggest that the demand fluctuation has already begun. Just looking at publicly available data that we have within TSA throughput, as well as I-92 international arrivals, and during a typical busy travel time, in March and into April. It appears as if U.S. consumers, for example, opted either to not take spring break trips, or they opted to drive to their locations. And again, that's just based off of the data point on TSA throughput, with throughput being down year over year by about 330,000 travelers, which the grand scheme, it doesn't seem like a lot when you think about on average 1.7 to 2 million on average go through TSA on a daily basis. So when you think about 330,000 less compared to last year, doesn't seem too alarming. But again, putting it into the context of time of year, I think it could be suggestive of something. But the international arrivals as well, right? That's another indicator that there aren't as many international people coming to the States to visit for business, tourism, leisure, what have you. That one was down at a larger margin, and particularly in February and March. It was closer to 700,000 less compared to prior year. So again, I do think that just the state of the economy and some of the uncertainty that lies ahead being backed up by some of these supporting metrics, in addition to declining consumer confidence. It's nothing to ignore, and it has a really broad impact, right? I mean, the U.S. Economy, has one of the stronger consumer economies in the world, and the GDP for travel in general hit its largest year on record, I want to say, in 2023, and it's about 10% of GDP. So, the broader economic impact, could be significant. And I think it's like it's pretty easy, I would say, to point fingers and this, that, and the other, and I'm going to avoid any sort of a political discourse. But the reality is the announcement of tariffs, seemingly has shaken things up. Definitely, shook things up in the stock market world. Certainly impacted my 401k personally. But and there's obviously a lot of different undertones and a lot of things that are being talked about in various news outlets. And but again, the reality is that consumer confidence has declined to its lowest point in 12 years. And there we are starting to see a reduction in at least airline traffic when it comes to TSA throughput, as well as I-92 international arrivals. So I think that the road ahead is, again, a bit unpredictable, but also in some cases a little bit predictable in the sense that we're starting to see declines now, and what that can mean for the months ahead is what type of material impact could that have on travel businesses and even travel insurance providers. Less trips that are being booked means obviously less revenue, right? And we're all in this travel industry at large. We all are for profit type of companies. I mean, yes, you have different type of companies that are B Corps and things of that nature. But the reality is that when we're thinking about the travel industry with different types of businesses that curate trips, or travel agencies or tour operators, travel tech companies, travel management companies. I mean, we all rely on consumerism, and we rely on those travelers booking those trips. Again, whether it's just a flight or a cruise or a package or what have you, right? And the outlook as far as the consumer's confidence go in the economy is suggestive that there's going to be a little bit of tightening the belts, from a disposable income perspective. I touched on this in the last podcast, that when you look at, the U.S. economy, or just the U.S. in general, about 50% of the U.S. population categorically falls within middle class, right? And while that obviously can be dependent on the state you live in, the city you live in, and all those types of different factors, when you think about the middle class making up 50% of the U.S. population, it stands to reason that if there is disposable income that they have, the likelihood of that disposable income going towards something other than travel becomes a little bit more likely. So I think that when we think about the potential reduction in trips being booked, that obviously has a ripple effect on all the different industries that make up travel, from airlines, cruises, to hotels, to vacation rentals, and then even travel insurance, right? We have a smaller audience of people who have the means to actually travel. So we'll have to, so that means we have to get creative, frankly, right? Um, and the travel industry has shown just, resounding resilience over the years. I mean, I lived it myself, with seeing, travel insurance sales like literally flatline, after March of 2020. And, and when people can't travel and they're forced to essentially stay at home, I mean, what else can you, what else can you do as a travel business or, travel company, right? But this isn't COVID-19, right? I mean, this is obviously a different animal. And it's something that I think that we need to look at from the perspective of the actual consumers, right? Because I think we, I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I would personally, rather sell a $20 travel insurance policy than sell none at all, right? So when looking at it, from the perspective of price sensitivity, I think it's something to really think about as to how you strategically curate different bundles, or how you price things in a way that in a value driven type of economy, so that you can allow people to travel and experience the world at a price point that may not be desirable for your margins, but it's a price point that will maybe enable them to purchase rather than not purchase at all, right? So I do think that there's something to be said about the marketing messaging overall, and how that plays into the strategy of booking booking trips, with the being more transparent, with regard to booking refunds and cancellations and things like that. But also too, you have to be really conscious of the type of price points that are out there, and that probability of a person booking, right? So I think that there's a lot in that realm in particular. But you also too, I mean, you have the other 50%, right, that fall above above the middle class threshold, that may still continue to travel and have the means to travel. I mean, for example, my brother-in-law is, he has a lucrative job, and he dual income, no kids, and he's going to continue to travel. But how many people out there are like him, right? Where you do, where you do live in a different type of state, with dual income, no kids, and you have more disposable income to travel. And, frankly, he loves to travel. So, people like him, it may be a bit of a moot point, but categorically, when I think about people from like an audience segmentation perspective that are like my brother-in-law, we're talking about, 2% of the population here, right? That is a very, very small audience pool. And most of those people in that, 1 to 2%, 1 to 2% range, they're gonna, they're booking the luxury stuff, right? And while they may be frequent travelers and spend a lot on travel, again, that's just 2% of the population, right? There's a whole another realm of people that make up the broader demographics that don't live like that, right? So I think it just speaks to how you strategically place and position your offers, how you message them, and I think it's gonna take a critical lens, and what your tolerance is from a margin perspective on, if your average, your average booking cost is, $500, and, you make a 10% margin on that, to me, that trip may be $300, right? So you're going to see some diminish there in terms of contribution margin, but it's better than not getting that transaction at all, frankly. And from a travel insurance perspective, just going back to the first segment around product relevancy, this is another critical moment, defining moment for the industry. When you think about why would somebody spend extraneous dollars on travel protection when times are already pretty lean as it is? So that's where, diversifying your product options to make that offer more appealing and more relevant will help you. Right. And again, it may come at the cost of, potentially diminishing margins. But again, would you rather have nothing? I mean, and I think the broad answer is no, right? You'd rather at least have something, and it gives you that opportunity to then, provide that customer experience to that person to remember you by, for them to buy from you again, just to kind of bring it all back here into perspective. So, all right, so I've rambled on here long enough. This has been the unscripted Travel Insights podcast to kind of really give a raw and uncut viewpoint of the travel insurance industry, the state of it, and really talking through the need for not just product relevancy, but an intense focus on customer experience, but also currently in these economic and uncertain times, for what we have potentially happening here this year, how we should be viewing this to continue to stay, relevant in this world where consumers have just so many different options to book trips and to buy travel protection coverage. So I am Clay Coomer, host of the Travel Insights podcast. Thanks for sticking with us. Hope you enjoyed this unscripted episode. Feel free to send me any commentary, any questions at my email, clay@battleface.com. Would love to hear from you. Would love to hear alternative opinions to this. So if you would like to talk with us about this subject matter with me on this podcast, I 100% welcome it. And don't forget to follow along in our podcast journey. We're currently available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Would love to have you subscribe to our channel. And of course, like I said, would love the opportunity to talk to some willing guests about not just this topic, but other topics as well. There's obviously a lot of different insights in the travel industry at large. Would love the chance to talk it over with you. So thanks so much for tuning in, and we will see you again next time.